Judge Napolitano, especially, and Fox News, especially differentially, and Facebook, especially differentially, especially and YouTube, and constantly increasingly relevant to since I was a kid and since everyone was a kid. There were men and women from off campuses influencing other motivations, nature's needs, interests, roles with, instances of communications used to posit sequence shifts, part of an identity theft fraud method. Now, where it forces people to entertain qualities of fact-cheaping nature that can't defend themselves and respond properly to the real causes of negative value nature progressions acts in natures. And that means after they responded, we have to do this in phases. In other words, where they have people involved with rehabilitation of criminals and such like that, they have themselves and their physical delusions simultaneously, but in their criminally foreign influence premises, they have themselves involved with crime acts and methods with their patients, the worst patients and criminals. What most further overt criminal enterprises since founding, what most furthered the private ones since founding was the breaching method, were those was the organ or the use by, the ordered use by some witch trials and slavery against people distinctly, including slavery and torture, identity theft, fraud, slanders against our founding parents too, including where and how that slander, again, all slander styles. That's how people pretend that we'll solve the things recorded. The courts are recorded at locations as victims since founding, as victim predators though. Same way the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and just that insidiousness with everybody, A through Z. And the branches of government individually grouped in together, used remotely pretending other. Pretend they could. So they're preventing uses of, they're preventing people to use sane logic. They're preventing, and now they painted themselves in corners, and they had themselves painted into corners since they were kids. For example, so there are people from my town that I never had anything to do with it who were pretending other. And they invested themselves with people that already went through careers as law enforcement, people with courts, already used those positions and, spoke for positive and negative. You spoke about the integrity of their own identities and of other people's dishonestly, leaving out sequence shifts, valuing any kind of exception to pretend other, in other words. So Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC are non-distinctly victims of the same things, but they can't discern that because of this is how sickly, not distinctly, how it was sustained. And so the media locations, their sources, Connecticut media locations, have roles with people that have been positing, planting fake evidences. Okay, thank you. At locations. And it begins with the youngest ages. So there's a Montessori school associated with Christina Sioka, involved with people. There's also with the people involved with syntax, the different departments at the colleges, because it's a method that's exploiting where and how, for example, relative to fact-cheaping nature counters, or even to explain properly what slavery was about. It requires a quality of fact-cheaping nature that can deal with what criminal insidiousness is about, because nature itself shows that any system that's going to involve slavery, in other words, a system other than our nature, actually belongs at, with, and as itself, the way it is, individual, group, and species identity of volume /S. And note the individual's strength is that we're dealing with a finite. We can only be the species together, though. So we have to realize all that we have to value There's a difference between making positive out of negative and making positive that's also positive unto itself. That system, which is native pure, where evolution's fruits and gifts come from, means from nowhere, including especially where and how we are fact in nature, including especially where and how the mandated law really means, what it really means. You know, I was trying to say follow mandated law since before the pandemic. Then mandate comes up. Everyone's using mandate. Oh, mandate or no mandate. The value of slavery, understanding it honestly, it shows the breaching method, which also to discern, we have to discern what is simultaneous, which was the identity, the torture. There was a torture method and forced roles was sustained, not to show not to blame it and to blame anything to what done, discerning it. You know, in other words, so there's slavery, torture, identity theft, identity fraud, and slanders styles forced by the breaching method. That had a functions by it, had a function/s by it, and still has that many ways recorded. So since before our founding parents were born, before cars were even, the suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures involved with that torture and slavery method against every single person, sickly, distinctly too, effectively having kept and keeping from being valued too. How sickly, non-distinctly, we have the same thing to counter. Modern countries, A through Z, self-valued roles, countering the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Per defenses of premises treatments, positive and negative treatments, identity treatments, ground locations, voices treatments, as our nature's treatments that could no longer afford the nature, that is the science, the identity the science has shared, the identity of what is hyper simultaneous from being valued with subjects treatments, for example, with topics treatment. So it painted the constituencies of the Democrats and of the Republicans and of people's uses of exceptions and of exception nature measured and maintained. Uses of that as liars since they're little kids, because they're lied to by a torture method, breaching method. Takes that beauty and honesty of little kids when they're little kids and prevents them from using. Well, in other words, when I got into a school, Highcrest School, I went to a Highcrest School when I was a little kid. And one thing I was so happy to be able to do and to feel it coming. So we could have done it in a feel a nice way, because if everyone gives you honest, in other words, where and how, we have to be able to, in other words, the human body knows the Native Americans were hurt by a breaching method, by a method, or you know, by sustained people coming on their country, coming on their home, hurting them. So, you know, so they had to like try to prepare themselves. They had to try to keep adapting because it keeps sustaining. See, now what I learned too, I didn't learn it then yet. Kind of I did. But I'm lucky to have had a father and mother, distinctly, non-distinctly, to teach me about nature. In other words, to care about Native American rights, not fake. Oh, it's a Native American rights, so we want to do it. In other words, you have to understand that it's a breaching method against them. Simultaneously, you have to understand fake law and fake care against the black people, forced to be different by the law because the breaching method has not been addressed. The breaching method forced everyone to roll with that, not our founding parents, who had to hide their roles, putting the counters up, forcing the North and South that were sickly, distinctly entrenched with it, to fight with each other as fact-cheating nature. Now they're going to have to pretend they're against slavery. New York City, no, then and now, had rules with slavery, but that were forced on our founding parents, exploitations of what they left us to tell about how they had to entertain positive and negative treatments that they wouldn't entertain. In other words, they had to speak things that the breaching method forced spoken and entertained. Otherwise, it would sense who would hurt and further, so they could keep using not just all locations remotely, but the ones using it remotely. This is, and using the counters to it, the other countries, individually grouped in together, identities of pseudo-sophistication since semi-ancient time, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, defended individually and grouped. They have a invisible but still discernible grouped identity of logic that is sick, as only syntax identity is allowed to speak as the country's representatives, A through Z. America is still the complete possession of a breaching method, of a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, if you will. I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers originally and still, what is hyper-correlated, how they would be, their roles with offensive federal rules of evidence is crimes while pretending other. Fabrication of evidence is crimes while pretending other. That being and having been self-valued by the logic, and with theater that can't defend itself, as in other words, and takes on emotions, because emotions are about the simultaneous. They're the show, also about exceptions, exception nature. Really, who is telling the truth, and where and how it's not. It's hello, Elaine. How are you? This is are you not here anymore? Vaccines. So no, this is to Fox News, Facebook, YouTube. They've been using the readings of statutes that are criminally foreign influenced, because at a principal child abusers campus, 3 other courts, various courts and their family members were in our person, and prisons tied to them, with people that are also involved with and have been involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and worse than that, and the interbranch, fabricating audio and video, and with the exception nature tied to them. They've been making instances at locations between people to keep people increasingly incapable of telling about on what we could discern easily, but we have to do it through what other people said and say, actually. So in other words, investigators, and people associated with them, interbranch, and grouped too, including the exceptions nature. The breaching method knew that they would have to confess and demonstrate that and how they are self-valued roles with that which is criminally foreign influenced. Differentially, it doesn't want to be. Blames on other things, others ourselves, but it is increasingly, and it has been used remotely, because where it's blaming on other things, others ourselves, where it is consciously, differentially, criminally foreign influence, for example, relative to subject treatments like racism. If we want to do racism correctly, we can't leave out the slavery against our founders too, against everyone sickly distinctly, while we're dealing with the people who need reliefs from it most, and hyper injunctive reliefs. In other words, not reliefs as they pretend, especially with criminal things that aren't violent, and especially differentially with the people that have committed violent crimes too. One way you can stop the violent crimes is by punishing the people who are involved with the systems including, in other words, by forcing them to follow mandated law and their premise on treatments on paper. See, interbrands have been switching names, forging names. What is recorded through time inseparable? They brought it up now. They have the campuses involved. They have all kinds of. They have former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, who non-verbally, so the interbranch non-verbally confirmed with other people tied to them and their family members and people around them confess. That also, which is relevant, because this is where and how locations, areas, and states are criminally foreign influenced. And this is per a method that knew the locations, areas, and states of countries A through Z would have to counter criminal foreign influences, not knowing how to do it properly, so they would blame other things, others, or ourselves for what the breaching method was causing and keeping maintain self-value, criminal insidiousness, natures of positive treatment, negative treatments, value of sequence treatments, value of individual voices treatments. On a mass scale, countries individually grouped in together against our own citizens, the formal people have been using, pretending that others make conspiracy theories to hide what is actually recorded, which is where and how they've been making instances that they could get everyone to lie about or self-value lies about, because they're not going to go on and go back and speak about, how they know someone through other people, honestly, because that's too extensive. So they put little instances where they show other people looking, standing near each other real fast, and then they pretend they know you. And in other words, with the intelligence community and with the overt criminal enterprises and with the private ones on and off the campuses too, public schools and private schools, there is being and having been orchestrated uses of the locations next to it, of the voices of them individually grouped in together in this value/value progression we are. So one thing it is commonly against everyone is an identity theft, fraud, slander method. It even connects people. So this is how it connects people, sense and sensibilities. For example, of Jane Austen's phrase, it connects people in practical reason. So we don't have people that are sane, speaking, and they're criminally foreign influence simultaneously, as the logic experts, various natures of courts, family members involved at locations with them, using their formal locations to hide what I caught them doing before they did that 3 times, more than 3 times with me. They've been fabricating police reports since I was a kid with connections between those people, the courts and the prisons tied to them, and all kinds of medical, foreign, and domestic racketeering. They're involved criminally roles with uses of routes, people along routes involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders that are relevant, where and how I'm going to have to speak, and then people are offensively planting lies against me. Connecticut News attached me to fake words with themselves, fake words with others, fake ties to others, fake natures of ties to others. They did that to people around me too. They even made them lie about they attached them to lies about cases that they won. People associated with them won. Now I'm leaving out names too, because they're pretending that people want privacy. The police brought up the women's names. There's a Fred Gouget involved with my town's police chief and Reno Mazzucato with a web school. He recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He's got a web school and two Mazzucato bakery places and a gas station next to there, and one of them, and Rocky Hill, for example. Well, and that Elm Street is involved with Joe DeMauro and with the Kerr family too, with a whole bunch of people with Korea and with Afghanistan involved with this DeMauro family with identity thefts and frauds, and with this Kerr family. I barely know them. They tried to pretend exceptions with by making me have a middle school class with Joe DeMauro, Heather Hansen, and a Ray Claw. I never saw Heather Hansen or Joe DeMauro or Ray Colo on my middle school campus ever. I saw Joe DeMauro one time. There was one exception. He came into my class, Mr. Potter's class. It was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They're involved with people on off the state judicial branch offices. Also with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso, and with a Fianza family that years after they made confessions. I never knew them then or now. In other words, and they confirmed their confessions on Facebook, which is one of the reasons, a bunch of things were confirmed on Facebook, which is one of the ways, but other ways the things are recorded simultaneously, things they need to lie about because they were using all the instances that came before them and that came before that, like even depositions. In other words, even when they have instances where, any kind of thing that goes before the courts, you have to go there and communicate with them. Been using that to hide their lie progressions from their rules with identity theft, fraud, slander method, and with digital crimes with the pictures of kids. So there's a daughter of there are little girls and boys associated with the family and friends of Brendan Leahy and his father, Brendan Leahy, and a wife and their family that pretended conversations with me about legal cases. Also has people involved with overt criminal enterprises with the areas and with various natures of federal criminals before they were caught, who are also involved with them in backgrounds pertaining to know me and trying to have influence people to exceptions, fake exceptions roles. So Mr. Neville also confessed that it was people involved with Rick Cianfaglione. And he was trying to start trouble between me and Rick Cianfaglione. And we didn't have any trouble in middle school. Someone was trying to start trouble with us in different ways in grammar school too. And then after he graduated, because I don't know, and he was involved with Ray, Tim O'Brien, and people with the name Colal involved with the Wethersfield police with wire crimes through the pandemic with their phones, with the Wethersfield town office's phones tied to elections, their election treatments. They have a guy with Dominion voting who was real aggressive, scary because they've been using their roles with digital crimes, pretend they don't realize because they pretend the integrity of the FBI and the CIA is also with family members, real or made up, and into Facebook with the identity theft fraud clicks, making it sound like I knew them. And in other words, she had my name repeated to her because I know her name was repeated to me, Kelly Kazmarek, by an Eric Jensen, who's one of the ones involved with a I don't think I never saw him around Anthony Agman and his family. But Anthony Agman, he has brothers and parents involved with identity thefts and frauds with them, and with the Leahy family, and with people on my street in the area involved with like a Smith family. I don't know the name of their mother, Jamie Smith and David Smith, involved with the town offices, with some guys involved with some doctors with drugs crimes, also as doctors with badges, and with the military, with Afghanistan, also involved with the town offices through time, and with the Korean family. There are men and women involved with Korean places, like a Taekwondo places involved with identity thefts and frauds. With this, I had nothing to do with them. That guy sought me out. That's what Joe DeMauro brought into his confession. One of the exceptions where I know him, that he would make confessions regarding the other people and his ties to the roles on my street with this in the past, and now they're involved with this through time, as their roles on the campuses with a whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain that have been involved a whole bunch of juxtaposed ways with a whole bunch of juxtaposed natures of abuses of each age of fact treatment nature that were our connections and uses of it relative to where and how on off Trinity College, Joshua Stryker, I never had a conversation with. He was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with identity thefts and frauds from a girl, one of the girls tied to Joe DeMoro's, that had her girlfriend, Heather Hansen, who him and a Mike Kerr, so they made an exception. They made confessions about how they shared her in front of me. Then they were pretending not to like each other behind people's back. And they had something listing, they had the locker. They had Heather near my locker. I never saw her one time on the campus in middle school. And that the only reason I went to that Sadie Hawkins dance, one of the reasons, because the girl didn't ask me. She asked me through people that were making confessions about people that from my grammar school that were involved with preventing me and preventing others from speaking about how we have means now to fix, how the ground is tactically denatured, how we could use the value to get ourselves to agree by just saying, in other words, you could see who's going to deny that native rights and the ground is tactically denatured. So how could we respect their rights if we can't even afford or fathom affording how to counter the negative value nature progressions, action natures, force, by the way, the ground is force self-value, tactically denatured, identity of natural function, relativity to our quality of fact, human nature, and regarding the real causes of negative value nature, progressions, action natures, where and how that is inherent to the identity of the simultaneous, increasingly prevented all kinds of relevant means to speak, where and how all kinds of offensive affronts are inherent to the opinions and the convictions of the only voices we are allowed to hear speaking. All exceptions, exception nature, and demonstration of the same thing. Or you wrote this one time on thing. So they can jump into people's business, leaving out the sequence shifts, leaving out the value of it. That's why they should follow mandated law. Well, in other words, there are proofs when humanity is in a positive value nature progression. Well, I don't want to jump off. That's like alpha and omega to how distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously with yin yang. Because the hyper invisible is the subject. That which is the value of what is actually simultaneously true always, not denying exception. Not denying exception nature. So when someone says slavery is natural, which they've been saying, because that's the only logic that has been the quality that has been heard, not by accident, people should know instantly the only way that slavery is natural is as criminal insidiousness. It's an identity of grounds, identity of relationship to itself that can't afford to the protraction of the short words with revelations inherent to and as the value of that which is hyper simultaneous, actually. So manifest, increasingly sickly. Oh, we're going to do this subject. Okay, and then how about that? Okay, we'll do Native American rights. Then we'll do Black rights. And the whole time, the breaching method measures maintains through countries individually grouped together, themselves measured and maintained against. It's like that. So in other words, the World Trade Center effectively measured, maintained, and made self-propagated, self-cultivated, breaching screen roles. For example, where they put up legalized torture because they were already involved with torture. They're already the Constitution, involved with the Constitution unabridged. What really caused and furthered the overt criminal enterprises is relevant to what I caught them doing with conspiracy theories, pretending they had conversations with people in the databases, spreading lies about people, slanders, setting up exceptions through time. How it has all along Route 3 on and off the state judicial branch offices. So they've been using readings of statutes, pretending they have the right to use Facebook for crime rolls. They don't have rights to crime rolls with. These are inter-campuses too. There are more leaders of the kids. It's relevant to where they have the FBI and CIA through time involved with inter-campuses and intra-campuses, crimes against girls and boys individually grouped and together too. Inter-campuses connected. So there's a Tom Perone and a Danielle Perone recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by the man associated with the Danielle Perone. They influenced her to pretend to know me. And they did her brother to do that too. Has something to do with their roles with investigators when they were kids, involved with the abuses of them, and with their roles with uses of churches, involved with identity theft, fraud, slander roles, forced with them. Their proofs they probably might have been one of those child abused sexual victims, because they have roles with the principal child abusers campus, with the rest of the police and the police chief, Cintron. His daughter is recorded. But I never had a conversation with her in my life, never saw her around me in my life. Jessica Cintron. Whole bunch of Wethersfield police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Her father, the police chief Cintron, also involved with one or more years ago. There was a police chief years ago reportedly intimate with a woman that was intimately tied to that other police chief, and with a dog that almost killed my sister one time, almost hurt my sister. This guy saved her. So these are also people. Joe DeMoro is one of the families, and his neighbors are involved with abuses of girls and with identity thefts and frauds and slanders. Like I forgot the guy's name, and then his wife too now, and then they have brothers and things like that, and they know my name. I've never even seen them before. It also has something to do with their uses of corners of streets. Chris Walters and Sandra Spada recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed stuff they don't know the extent of, but they know it involves judges fabricating, and judges involved with that, involving them with identity thefts and frauds and slanders with people at the corner of Knott Street and Walker Hill, which is, you know, other corners on that street are also involved. They've been using corners in the schools too. Rick Sam Faglione, years later, he said that there's a Kevin Harris, has a mother, I don't know her name, and they might have taken a picture of me walking out of the side of the high school with him one time, because he's involved with identity thefts and frauds. Try to make exceptions to pretend that he knew me. I pretend I had a conversation with him every day. It has something to do with, they confessed, recorded New Britain Superior Court and people on Covington Street in New Britain, which they confirmed that to me when I was a kid and then as an adult. They're involved with identity thefts and frauds with judges and prosecutors, investigators, and uses of campuses, intercities connected, where they stack fake things into databases and they spread lies and illusions through their own kids that they demonstrate and they have remote uses of Black family members. Now, Rick C. Faglione sought me out as a stranger, and then again as an adult, as a young adult, to confess, record, demonstrate, confirm with others from my town who went to my grammar school too. There was a Leahy family in the background. Like, for example, I didn't know that at the time. I never had met. I never know this Leahy with medical families that with Hartford Hospital triage, and with these systems interstates like this, where they force people for mental evaluations. Now, see, they left out where and how the police have been criminally foreign influenced, fraudulent integrity natures. And when they speak about emotions, for example, you could discern them lying to themselves and others, and with physical delusions. So they switch names. Switching names is one of the things they do individually, group too, which shows that group methods are actually recorded. But you have to have mandated law followed. And they also pretend, oh, all these people are saying these things. All those people are saying those things because they all have ties to the same people that are known involved with federal crimes and were spreading lies about me. And I'm not making opinions about anyone. You guys are, having litigated from the bench. Worse. Not you guys personally, not you, Judge Napolitano. This is an identity theft, fraud, slander method, sickly, distinctly against you. There are proofs that they use campuses you went to and everyone went to, where they put fake things in campuses about us. Where they took pictures, people walking next to one, make it look like they know you. For example, on the sides of the schools. So through time, there are people on Central Connecticut State University. There's a Officer Hunter involved with Hartford courts, who also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, is involved with switching names, falsified police reports, clicks, and roles with courts that were involved with criminally with the people involved with the depositions of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, leading up to and other depositions and cases they brought up, criminally involved with themselves, with the people involved with that, with the family members that worked for the courts too, and then with the remote uses of them that they perpetrated, and with the names forging and switching, pretended legitimate but not. So there's an Emily or an Amy who's involved with the Hartford courts, involved with the depositions of former director of the FBI and his co-defendants. There are family members, and there's various natures of Hartford courts and of the same nature of court. Also, as ones involved with the family members, investigators, involved with New Britain Superior Court and Connecticut District Court and other Middletown courts. They have roles with federal crimes of juxtaposed natures, with evidences at locations, with identity theft, fraud, slander roles. So they've been making the wrong outcomes and then responses to their outcomes in cases. And they've been extending, communications. These are people that pretend to be for logic by pretending to perceive others as prejudice, who are getting their information from people lying about others, with the KKK, Confederate flag themed military police families that are little frauds involved with that I never had classes with, never saw around campus. Try to make an exception one time real quick with like a Justin Glavinskis. His wife is involved with the executive branch and the political branch when I was a kid. And now I saw how it's recorded now through time how they had the judicial branch also, and all exception agent to like military families involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, clicks, roles with uses of the shopping centers. There's a Daryl Chandler. I don't know his sister's name. He's involved with identity thefts and frauds against me, as per people involved with and as investigations where they ask questions and the person doesn't respond, and they put fake things, and they hide how they're involved with the federal crimes that they're trying to pretend to be against, and they pretend they know the person or that we even had words with them. So there's something about Daryl Chandler, who was involved with predicate acts with people at Trinity College and at CCSU, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, and interbranch. Various courts have been involved with those. They're caught at the locations, like with a officer who says his name is Darth Vader with Trinity College, involved with wire crimes and with email and Facebook pages, involved with child sex offenders and other medical offenders of kids. The same families are involved with uses of elderly homes and various locations of private probate courts, and people in collusion with a whole bunch of natures of organized crime associated with family members on and off the state judicial branch offices, relevant to where and how they've been using and hearing my name when I don't even know them. I never had a personal communications with Mr. Potter, my eighth grade teacher. I never had anything bad about him. There's a Chet Casper, who was also one of the ones who went to my campuses. I never saw him around campus. He was in backgrounds pretending other into databases too, having it pretended into databases, per narratives, per little tricks they use with a Debbie Gold. These are also people involved with uses of fake passions against prejudice, where they're making up the fake prejudice. In other words, they're making up, pretending to perceive other people to be prejudiced, where they had them involved, where they were planting evidences at locations. So also there was a man who used the name Sullivan and said he was Wethersfield police from the Wethersfield town offices like 9-10 months ago. And I can't get a response from the Wethersfield police. They keep forging and switching names. They confessed over the Wethersfield police. That was one of their police, but he's switching names with another officer. And they have a whole bunch of officers that use the name McGee. These are also people involved with the Native American locations and with Rocky Hill schools, and with people involved with criminality with their teachers at Central Connecticut State University, and with Luigi Guerrero, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. I never had a conversation with him personally in my life. He tried to pretend other with a John Mayano and with people with Bryan College and some place in Rhode Island tied to a Paul Zano, who's been planting evidence, involved with all kinds of natures of roles with this since I was a kid. His roles, I never had anything to do with him. He's identity theft, fraud. They make people that know your name spread slanders against you. Sequence shifts. I never hung around with. I never even saw what John Mayano. I looked like. I didn't know who he was until after everyone in my grade graduated. And the only reason I stayed back that year is because that speech class teacher was involved with recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. I found out after though. So she's involved with various natures of federal crimes against kids, child abuses. I recorded involved the men and women involved from off campuses, forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading on campuses roles with that. And my campus did good. That's why I never got suspended or in trouble for this. You know, or anything with all the things they would brought up. Then with time, the identity theft, fraud, slander method, it uses corners. So I don't know all the names of the people tied to Daryl Chandler, but and they know my name, and they've been planting evidences when attaching me to fake words and locations, fake natures of ties to myself, to themselves and people on my street, as the people on the campuses I went. They have ties to people on my street involved with predicate acts. So there are various police forms, like including former director of the FBI, state police and their family members, Wethersfield police and their family members, other towns police and their family members, Rocky Hill, Newington, involved with federal crimes, identity theft, frauds, slanders, fake integrity of or with people with the name Cololo. There's a Phil Cololo first though that Bob Chase was supposed to read me a police report. He's involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, pretending other by even putting a police report fabricated in the background. Now he's also involved with wire crimes, falsified police reports, narratives, a different possible police report pretended for the same one that Mendez police brothers are involved with on the Wethersfield Police Department. Now there's also a Yagman family who say his family called the police years ago. It has something to do with people brought him up years ago at the corner of Town Line Drive and Southstein Highway. Since I was a kid, the people with the name Cololo and DeMar were quoted, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed, and Kerr. They have federal crimes with that corner of Southstein Highway, and with judges and with prosecutors and with military and with overt criminal enterprises and with identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles on the campuses with what I actually recorded on campuses. So that has something to do with that. There's people from Modern Pastry who are good people, I'm sure, but I know they were abused by police forms associated with them, and with the slanders that, for example, and worse, that O'Brien family and that a Cololo family pretended to them about me. They were hiding their roles, planting evidences, and pretending through other motivations, pretending through other needs, interests, because the courts are criminally involved with them and the overt criminal enterprises involved and entered departments at Central Connecticut State University. So they have all these ties to a Cololo family. There are two Ray Cololos. I don't know if they're police forms or what, but they have police forms in their family, and the former director of the FBI and his co-defendants involved with Joe DeMauro and with Chris or Eric Jensen, who also are one of the ones that sought me out, confess, record, demonstrate, confirm roles with the O'Brien family and others on off with the location with identity theft, frauds. Behind my back, trying to make exceptions. You're on a ski trip that with a whole bunch of people that were saying, Also, in other words, so they have wire crime methods that also go back to a gang that was on the ground. It was the only time I was ever around Denise DeSimone. And it was like a whole bunch of kids. Yeah, a whole bunch of brothers. And I don't know if she has another sister in their family, DeSimone. Now, that's one of the names that was brought up to me by people at Hartford Hospital. 3 times they forced me there for mental evaluation. The police involved with child abuser, campus too. The since proven principal child abuser, they have them involved with upskirt pictures on Twitter too, with other people then and now involved, fabricating emails with the Wethersfield police chief and with people from the Britain Superior Court and with the FBI involved. There is also a guy named Ian. And now he's one of the neighbors of the Perone family that went out of their way with a whole bunch of. There's a Mark Violet and there's a Jessica Levinsky. There's also some girl who approached me at Stop and Shop pretending I know Jessica Levinsky. I don't know how she knew my name, and the timing was that before it was Stop and Shop, it was Food Mart, and there was a guy named John who was a manager of Wells Road, a mobile gas station. And so they were involved with the programs where they have the training and the policing and the Cub Scouts, and this person goes like that. And they have all those programs and the elderly, the elderly home. They have all those people. This is what really is criminally foreign. It keeps all locations used criminally foreign influence. It keeps them used remotely, showing how they need to keep people worse than persona non grata. And they need to do that and pretend lying about their motivations, because what is actually recorded, which is how they're actually criminally foreign influenced, and how they make confessions from people from inside of a group, so the other person is not going to be able to respond. And as confessions that are demonstrating roles with lie progressions, and where and how they have employed remotely uses of the identity thefts and frauds of Black family members as interbranch in Wethersfield, forced, trick, hurt, persuaded to roles, taking as shock on victims not realizing how to react. I reacted not knowing. I felt like I was going to endanger a kid who was a Black kid on Facebook from Wethersfield. I saw, so I friend requested him. Then I stopped it. Then he friend requested me again. I stopped it again. I don't know if he did it again or whatever, but I felt bad because now he thinks like, why would you friend request me then push me away? Because in other words, they have people involved with forging and switching in names at locations, with the judges forging and switching names, fabricating police reports intercities, as the ones with female judges used remotely. That's what's actually recorded. But we need to get them on paper because they're pretending to. Oh, you're saying that about us? I'm actually, you said that. You guys said that. You guys, they have the people speaking for the judges, and they have the exceptions where the judges, too, through the time, the connections between them, they spoke fake things into records. There's a Judge Smith I had to write a complaint about years ago. And so there are people tied to Christopher Cullen who are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with courts, involved with various natures of industries like real estate companies, involved with the executive branch, criminally with them too, in the military, like with and uses of Town Line Drive and Hangdog Lane. Those people will tell you they don't know me, and though some of them might lie though. In other words, the only reason they know me, they were quick instances, and they were all like, it was out of sequence. Had something to do with John Mayana used to hang with them, and with people from my street used to hang around the streets near Two Rod Highway, and where it runs into Hangdog Lane and the Burlington Turnpike. And they have identity theft, fraud, slander roles that are also roles with falsified police reports, that are also criminally foreign influenced falsified police reports, and roles with criminally foreign influenced uses of campuses, and of identity theft, fraud, slanders, tricks. And my penis is normal, by the way. There's a Mike Roberts who's one of the ones who was with Joe DeMauro with Wethersfield Police, who were slandering me when I would come around a corner in a cafeteria, and then I would never see them, and I don't know the people they're talking that to. They would, in other words, they would time when you're going to walk in there to plant evidences. So, and they have something to do with the guy in fifth grade, Mr. Abruzzi, said he was fabricating evidences with this Joe DeMauro. I didn't know what his agenda was. He's involved with his family members. Each age of his family members involved with drugs and medicines crimes, with police families in courts, with New Britain campuses in Central Connecticut State University and Wethersfield. Now, a whole bunch of people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A former Mayor Gold is also involved with fabricating images and painting fake arrays and ties between people at Millwoods Park through time. Also has the roles with the Connecticut news media locations, individually grouped and together, having been criminally foreign influenced identity theft, frauds instances, and narratives in their stories. You know, real quick story, they put a whole bunch of little fake lies about it, and with the people in it. So we have to have mandated law followed. Modern pastry, please. What people associated with the Wethersfield police brought you up, and with the news that have been attaching us to fake words and fake ties to each other. And they have the Wethersfield police switching and forging names. With the name Cololo, they confessed, is one of the ones involved with the name uses of the name Sullivan. It's a male though, and they said they only have a female. They confessed to me and others that they also have a bunch of officers that use the name McGee too, as the ones involved. And now, so they have something to do with Afghanistan and criminal justice and people involved with the DACA program and all the different programs through time, intercities, interstates. Now, so there's a Mike Demain who was involved also with an Adam Demain as one of the people. I don't know them, but they're confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with buildings next to Fox Connecticut News, involved with federal crimes with them and the former director of the FBI. His co-defendants like a Thaddeus Grabowski, involved with that, with the Mendez police and the domains with identity theft, frauds instances, also with complete strangers like a Joshua Julian, involved also them with federal crime, criminal uses of forensics locations and of their family members, and 3 spots at the end of the Borough Turnpike. There's a construction place near there that John Milano said is he involved with his identity theft, fraud, slanders against me that are also included sequence shifts, and also included has his roles with falsified police reports, criminally foreign influence uses of locations like near the Harriet Beecher Stowe Mark Twain House, which with like the lawyer of Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on racketeering, influenced the Corrupt Organization Act. His lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, and the locations around there are also involved with people on and off web school, involved with men and women with criminally foreign influence uses of the sense and sensibilities of coaches where they've been coaches I never had communications with. They were using John Milano in collusion also with a coach there. I don't know if he's intelligence community or not, but they're these people don't have integrity. I don't even have a conversation with you to show this. So in other words, this guy's involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders per people that said they communicated with him. Coach Hagenbar, I never had a personal conversation with him. So he's involved with some identity theft, fraud, slanders, clicks also with coaches I don't know. Like Chet Casper's father, I don't even know his name, and he's got a daughter. I don't know who she married, but they're involved with people in the intelligence community involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with this method from people from other classrooms, pretending us to fake locations, fake words, and sequence relationships with themselves and others. It has something to do with all along Route 3. So please get them on paper. To one name in sequence who disbelieves anything I said regarding how they hid this too. In the New Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts, Middletown courts, people involved with Whiting Forensics Place, involved with their patients and criminals before they got caught, further with the principal child offender school, and further with a guy named Emmett, and with this guy named Bob Chase, further involved with the Phil Cololo, further involved with the principal child abusers campus, identity thefts and frauds against me in the background through time, pretending to be my friend to my parents behind my back when I wasn't around because they're cousins of them. I never even saw them on my street when I was growing up. So they've been planting evidence on my street too. With the 3 times they were lying about the sequence too, because I caught them before the 3 times they sent me for a forced mental evaluation. Each of the 3 times they had different people connected to my street, involved with federal crimes on my street with them, as the people who were involved with that having been coordinated intercities. So they have the field across the street to make someone walk by. They do that. They did that. They use the corners of the streets. I caught them. They won't follow mandated law, though. They're making conspiracy theories against other people and pretending and making things, with physical delusions. People become shocked and awe. They start saying things wrong. So please, Your Honor, there are proofs that they're spreading lies against you and me. They're per the same sick, non-distinct that is in the suburbs, sickly distinctly from how it is in New York City, but it is also sickly, non-distinctly what is keeping the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, natures, and New York City blamed on other things, others themselves, and then keeping responses to it also self-valued as what is used remotely and shown needs to hide their logic. Oh, we're going to do this. Oh, but we have to speak like that because the pressure on us over here, pressure's on you over here because it's fake politics. It calls itself politics, individually grouped together, they interbrand. But it's not just politics. It's mixed with physical delusions, criminally foreign influence, premises, treatments, fact, cheap nature, qualities, and aspects. As criminal and sensitive natures of positive and negative treatments and collusion against identities each. So they did not and do not have rights. There's K-N-E-R-R. Also, there are people with the name K-E-R-R who are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with New Britain Superior Court's Facebook pages, including the ones that they made afterwards. But one of them is involved with rape threats with that name, and with people involved with that work for or that are associated. Like there's a Celeste Wells, also involved with federal crimes with databases as a victim when she was a kid. I never had a class with her, never saw her around campus. She was influenced to make a quick exception to pretend other, Celeste Wells, as roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, where they know little boys aren't going to want to say bad things about girls. And it's juxtaposed with the guys who say the bad things against those girls. Also, the ones attaching me and others to fake locations with them, fake ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves, and per their uses of ground locations, like the corner of Knott Street. In other words, like the shopping centers. So there's something to do with some probate court judges that are criminally foreign influenced with people associated with Town Line Drive and its roles with New Britain Superior Court corruption, Hartford Court's corruption, with a whole bunch of juxtaposed natures, drugs, medicines, crimes, physical delusions too, and identity theft, fraud, slanders roles. There's a Dominic Abate who confessed, demonstrated, or confirmed. He's involved with identity theft, frauds against me, and slanders against me. As a complete stranger, I never had a conversation with him in my life, and he approached me on Facebook to pretend other. I walked by him on a job site one time. I was just on there for like an hour because it was brought up to me by some people involved with 9/11 crimes, with the cover-ups too since. See, before the 9/11 attack, I caught courts and people involved with the location with federal crimes at locations, intercities in Connecticut. I didn't know it was related yet. Then I found out it was related to people my father was suing pro se, as a pro se litigant with some but he was using, it was for union stuff, but he was using racketeering statute Now, these are also his co-defendants and their family members. These are ones that are involved with timing, identity thefts, and frauds with as people I never had classes with, never saw around campus, never saw Don Schedule on campus in my life, never communicated with her on the phone in my life. The only time I saw her was real quick, 1 second. She non-verbally confirmed roles with a whole bunch of juxtaposed natures of federal crime with people who went to my, with people who didn't go to my, I never had anything to do with on my, in other words, Joe DeMoro, Heather Hansen. So there's a Mr. Neville and our people involved with Cromwell and all along Route 3, involved with abuses of Heather Hansen, involved with wire crimes, drugs crimes, medicines crimes, mail crimes, uses of the corner of Walker Hill and Wells Road, relevant to something. They have things tied. They have those locations brought up in there. They would bring up corner streets in confessions. And they would just happen to be around corners of streets when they would make confessions. As the people were connected identity theft, frauds, instances, slanders, roles. As the people involved with this Debbie Gold and her father, the mayors, stacking identity theft, fraud, slanders against me in databases, uses of all sides of the Millwoods Park for identity theft, fraud, slander, roles. Houses on Route 3 involved with New Britain campus, New Britain campus, Central Connecticut State University, through time has been with a whole bunch of people, foreign and domestic, criminally foreign influence, uses of their kids' roles with identity theft, fraud, slander methods that everyone missed because they're fact sheet nature oriented. They take picture and they put they abuse the girls and the boys, and then individually sickly each of them, and then grouped. In other words, where that's relevant to where and how they've been blaming the real causes for negative value, nature, progression, stagnation, other things, others, ourselves, wrongly, exactly the way the breaching method wanted it needs. So I shouldn't have to beg and beg for a response. I haven't been afforded writing since before the World Trade Center attack, and they've been attaching me to more and more fake words with people tied to themselves. So the interbranch. So there's only 3 branches of government. When I need a response for a whole bunch of Wethersfield police forging and switching names, attaching me and everyone around me to fake words, intercities too, and New Britain Superior Court and the Hartford courts and the Middletown courts that got involved. They have the I need them on paper with the Dr. Graham too, made confessions about roles with these people, also recorded through time and confessed on off the people involved, on off the post offices, on off the buildings next to the post office in Wethersfield, went on off the schools in Wethersfield, next to the South Dean Middle School. Further, we have some judges and prosecutors involved with drugs and medicine crimes, physical delusions, and evidences planting, identity theft, fraud, slanders against little kids and their families through time there. So let's get them on paper. No! And let's get them on paper regarding this Phil Cololo and these Mendes police with these switching narratives on their falsified police reports. Nothing I can respond to without, those are 2 different narratives. Now pick a third one and say sorry, or say you don't know, what I'm speaking about. Say something on paper. Pick one name in sequence: Wethersfield Police, New Britain Courts, Hartford Courts. So you have a Judge Killian also speaking fake things and sequence shifts into the record, also involved with Facebook, with rape threats, people involved with 3 times with Hartford Courts, with Hartford Hospital, involved with doctors, foreign and domestic, nurses, involved attaching me to identity their fake conversations with themselves, and fake sequence relationships to themselves and people at locations involved with federal crimes with them. And they confessed roles with Facebook. They pretend people, they've been using Facebook to cover live aggressions where they made the identity theft, fraud, slander self-valued by the criminally foreign influence fakes, A through Z, speaking for the law. That's what's recorded. So have them follow mandated law and forget the readings of statutes regarding Facebook, because they're leaving out exceptions, exception nature. In other words, how police could use it to fabricate things and slander people. So Wethersfield police also have been preventing me a means to counter their roles also with people making fake Facebook pages and pretending to be me and people tied to me and my family through time as their roles with federal crimes with defendants in various cases and with people proven guilty in various natures of cases that were also before they got caught using spreading lies and illusions on off job sites and also on off campuses as people involved with the predicate acts on Trinity College, switching names with deans involved, the uses of their family members, people associated with them. So, so this has been off the campuses manifest, relevant to the fact-cheating nature uses of the identity thefts and frauds through time. So there are people from my town, from Wethersfield, who went to Trinity College, who were recorded involved with identity thefts and frauds and slanders through time, also in their form of falsified police reports, wire crimes, juxtaposed natures of drugs and medicines crimes, and with physical and with doctors' drugs and medicines crimes too, mixed. We have to counter drugs crimes by countering the people who build the drugs. If it's grown, if it's a marijuana plant, you got to be sick to put little kids in jail for that, for example, or even an adult. If you do like distribute it and you could put fentanyl, things like that, that's why they have the fentanyl for too. They're measuring and maintaining the fake quality of syntax nature, tied to all the things they have to. Oh, but we were trained in this. You weren't trained in it. How could you make it? They can't think. Your Honor, it was worse than criminal incompetence that I've seen as the valley standing as the capital. Across, we have the suburbs still tactically caused to negative value nature progression activity that tactically nature identity, the grounds identity relationship to itself. The worms can't even live anymore. We keep taking we took too many generations, too many decades. We took away all the grass, all the stuff. The soil changed. All the worms died. Worms walk into puddles. Worms walk into water. They fed the birds. The birds eat all these bugs. Positive or negative value nature progressions are caused by our identity of relationship to the simultaneous, proper, per its identity of relationship to itself, per its system. And that can be discerned, but not using what they call as mandated law, out of sequence, not regarding everything, regarding regarding what is actually simultaneously recorded. See, they have those identity ground locations involved with fact-cheating nature-oriented predicate acts whole methods, not just predicate acts. And they're forcing us to have communications with people we don't want to have communications with. And by just faking the communications. And then when we try to have communications with people, they hide that and they put fake things in place of it. So there was a man recorded involved with a Dr. Dingleberry, who's also involved with houses in my area with some untimely deaths and drugs with the police and the police forms, who are allowed to be involved with the drugs forms. And the policing of the shopping center next to where the Wethersfield Police Department is now, and on the Town Line Drive. There's a woman who they said, I never met her in my life. They said she used to pull her eyebrows out. Someone said, I don't even know the name though, said that to me about a girlfriend of a guy tied to a Mike Pandolf, who's who also made confessions tied to the Town Line Drive. Has something to do with all along Wells Road, and they're like the corner of Wells Road and Walker Hill, and the side of the high school. People have been planting evidences through time, and they're going out of their way to pretend that they're legitimately proud about certain people, and not liking other people, and behind our backs. But they're also demonstrating exceptions. So, if you try to fight with it, that's why they're getting people mad. That's why people are acting like what we see as all we are allowed to discern in the news, and with the sense and sensibilities of the people responding. So they weren't letting us respond with anger properly. The anger is not bad if it's going to be used to reveal sequence truth. If we had one parent came in now to the whole species, we'd have to yell at us just to get us to listen, to get angry at us, and it'll be right. Boxing is might. Your Honor, Fox News, Facebook, YouTube, please tell me the name of who disbelieves anything I've said. I want a response for that campus too, and the other campuses too, intercities. I want to be a teacher, and I want to be paid for that time too, because they're playing these games. I want them to pay me. But before I don't want to have a suit get in the way of fixing the problem real fast. When you guys keep trying to make that not happen by trying to force people to sue things wrong too, and blame people wrong, because the courts I caught at the campus is criminally involved, sickly distinctly from the executive branch, police forms involved. There is an officer with the name O'Neill, who also has a wife named O'Neill, who's involved with teacher at West Hartford schools. And she's one of the ones involved with High Crest School, who've been involved with preventing me writing and attaching me to fake words and ties to the other people. And with and they hid the confessions of the principal child abuser to me, and confessions and stuff on our answering machine. And they hid that by fabricating emails and spreading lies to the parents about me. Now they also have neighbors of people on the school board involved with the military, criminally foreign influence, involved with identity thefts and frauds through time. Has something to do with their roles with some Taekwondo places with people in Rocky Hill, and a whole bunch of people tied to Mike Roberts and Ray Clough with state police, interstates, and with some FBI and Wethersfield police, and a police chief years ago with the same house, involved with identity theft, frauds, lands with them, confessions tied to Two-Route Highway, Hangdog Lane, attach me to fake location. Their roles with men and women that make the drugs, and they're getting the kids arrested, but they're keeping themselves out, and they're doing it because their roles with identity thefts and frauds, fabricating evidences. So the more they are showing needs for others to say that, because they have themselves involved with other people's identities. So a Brian Bonin and a Ray Cololo and others said that there's something to do with the drugs and medicines they have roles with on Two-Route Highway and the houses next to it, juxtapose different natures of drugs, and with medical drugs with doctors and people with the military, as people criminally foreign influence too, has something to do with their roles with locations on Route 3 in Rocky Hill. And like there's an Arch Pizza, there's a people associated with Arch Pizza involved with a Fianza family, and with mayors involved on off the state judicial branch offices, involved also on off Two-Route Highway, a whole bunch of different juxtaposed ways with drugs and medicines, crimes with kids through time, and with the courts criminally involved with them, identity thefts and frauds, and with how they have people, lying to the same girls as their different boyfriends, and how they're kept needing to, because they're hurting the girls individually grouped and together, sickly distinctly from how they're hurting the men, the boys, and the men. Or they're just attaching the real men to fake words, because you don't have real men. We don't have a capable intellectual community of health experts and judges and courts tied to them. They've been sickly, perversely, criminally foreign influence since I was a kid. Relevant also to the fact, treatment, nature-oriented predicate acts that Joshua Julian is involved with them, and uses of Facebook in the principal sex offenders campus, and the doctors involved with uses of digital pictures of girls of the campuses and some upskirt, their roles with upskirt nature type things, juxtaposed as the ones involved with simultaneously juxtaposed drugs and medicines crimes with the kids. They're not legitimately thinking that they're helping people, giving them drugs and medicines. We have to clear the delusions and the criminally foreign influence natures out of the courts and out of the police forms, individually grouped in together. Various natures of courts and various natures of the same courts. They have a whole bunch of private locations tied to them. And East Hartford also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with former Governor Malloy and the principal's family, his kids involved also with their narratives, with the identity thefts and frauds and wire crime roles, therefore being coached onto his kids still. The principal in jail for the upskirt nature of pictures. Please get it. Please have some integrity. Fox News, CNN, YouTube, Facebook. Let me get a response. Give me a name. Just give me a name to respond to. All those people make confessions too, and they're all involved. They're all true. Darren too. There was some Jewish community centers involved. They don't know the extent of their confessions because they're all speaking what other people tell them. In other words, there are places in Newington further involved with the police forms, including how they have women police, sickly distinctly from the men, coward, punk, fakes. Hey, CTP outbreaks. Not you, Your Honor. Let's get them on paper. They have complete identity theft, fraud, slander roles across the states of modern nations, A through Z, fakes. Tied to this. This is what is actually manifest. If we go for war, that's what it's for fake integrity of science, fake integrity of logic. You know, Russians and Americans, these other countries, they all have collusion with their Ukraine too, with psychology, psychiatry tied to the courts and the police forms, delusions, rot, sick, fake punks. All exceptions, exception H, are in demonstration of the same thing. And that being having been applied by the breaching method that really keeps most further the overt criminal enterprises, private ones. Vaccines. I teach you things below.